nobody still 3 years later is doing anything like that. And, we're talking parodies, like song parodies or just goofy skits or matching on higher end homes, matching like the transitions to the beat of the music, and just nobody's doing anything like that still.
You can have fun and be professional, and fun is accessible for people that are watching the videos.
Professional depending on who you're talking to, right?
True.
So, I mean, some of my videos do get official songs called on.
Welcome to the Rains Report with your host, Jason Rains.
What's up, everybody? Jason Rains, your KC seller with Remaxley Realtors here. And you guys, we are doing a brand new format today. We're still doing our Tuesday releases on YouTube. That's kind of like city features, more local, neighborhoods, all that, even restaurants, things to do in the area. We're still doing our Saturday talking head videos on YouTube, just talking about the market, question and answers, stats, anything real estate related. But we're taking that video on Saturday and we're also releasing it in podcast format on Fridays. So you can start finding these videos, the talking head videos, on podcast format on any of your favorite podcast sites starting on Friday. So definitely switching things up. I got my boy Luke here. He's going to kind of be chiming in every once in a while, just asking some questions, kind of like that everyday person. Maybe I say something that he thinks somebody might not understand. He's going to chime in and just kind of get some more clarification, things like that. As far as the podcast format, more short form, 12, 15, maybe 20 minutes. We're not going to go real long on the podcast just because we want to keep these fun and interesting. And there's probably only so much real estate that you can hear me talk about. So there's that as well. But no, just whether you're finding this on the podcast again on Fridays, make sure you subscribe to it. We're calling it the Rains Report, RAINS, the Rains Report. And obviously, if you're finding it on YouTube, make sure you're still clicking subscribe and the notification bell so you're notified every time we drop videos. That's every Tuesday and Saturday again. Podcast every Friday. So that's kind of the new format. If you're like, what is going on? What is all this? That is what we're doing. So just a little bit different look to the Saturday videos. So if this is your first time following us on YouTube, or really since this is the first podcast we're doing, I want to give you a little bit of, background on me. Just so if it is your first time, we've done a little background video once before, but it's been a little while, so I'll give you a little update. And like I said, if it's your first time on the podcast, you kind of know what you're getting into with me, who I am, what I'm all about, things like that. So I've lived in Kansas City since 1989. Moved here when I was 6 years old from Oklahoma, but born in Iowa. So moved around a little bit.
You're born in Iowa?
Born in Iowa.
And then you went to Oklahoma?
And then to Kansas City.
Healthy middle.
Yeah.
Okay.
So been here since 89. Went to college went to high school at Oak Park High School up in Gladstone. And then just went 15 minutes down the street to college at William Jewell College. Played football there. And graduated William Jewell College and actually became a police officer for 15 years for Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. So that was an interesting time to put it quickly and cut that down. But knew kind of towards the end of that 15 years that's not something I wanted to do long term after that. But pension wise, kind of had to stay 15 years to get the pension. So did that for 15 years. The year before I retired as a police officer, though, decided to get into real estate. I'd actually built half a dozen houses from 06 to 08. If you know anything about real estate, that was not a great time to try to break into the industry as a residential builder. But we gave it a go, learned a lot. Gives me a whole new perspective on when I'm out looking at houses, things to look at versus just, oh, that light fixture is very pretty, right? Kind of get a little more in depth as far as foundation stuff and some electrical stuff. Not that I'm an inspector by any means, but just gives me a little bit different stuff to look at. So started with Remax back in 2016, and that's the only place I've ever been. So been with Remax the whole time, and the last 3 years have either been number one or number two in my office as far as rankings. So even though I've been doing it a relatively short amount of time, getting ready to start my 7th year, have been blessed to be as successful as I have been, and have earned our Platinum Award the last 2 years. Gonna hit that again this year. Almost got to the next award level, but probably just gonna miss that one. So
Hi, Everyman here. What's the Platinum Award?
So
What do you get
Platinum Award,
awarded?
it goes by gross commission income, which can be a little deceiving because it doesn't take into account all the marketing expenses,
Okay.
all the business expenses,
Yeah.
all that. It's just gross income.
Okay.
So the higher you go, the different award levels, but also the higher you get, the bigger amount you have to earn to get to the next level, right?
Okay.
So like the first award level is $50,000 in gross commission income. The second one's $100,000, but then it goes to $250,000, and then it goes all the way up to $500,000, and then it starts doing $250,000 jumps. So you have to make an extra $250,000 from one level to the next,
Okay.
which there's a lot involved to be able to get to that level, and you're really having to sell a lot of properties,
Okay.
helping a lot of people. So yeah.
So now I'm going to ask you questions because I'm doing the FAQ. So I didn't even know this about you. We've been working with you for a couple of years. So you were a builder.
Yeah.
Was it your own company or you were working for somebody?
No, it was my own. Me and my buddy Mike Schramm started that company in 06.
Okay.
So I was the general contractor.
Okay.
Had my general contractor's license.
Okay. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what's the overlap as far as real estate's concerned? At what point while you were building did you decide I'm going to get into real estate, or did that just not work out? And
It
you
just didn't work
shifted?
out just because it was the downturn of the market, the whole housing crash.
So
was
that
in,
would have
like,
been, was that 08,
Yeah,
10?
08, 09. So we were doing like a couple houses at a time.
Okay.
Like I said, build half a dozen. That was not working out. We were having trouble selling the houses. Weren't really making any money. It wasn't very profitable business by 08. So we just decided to put into that. And then fast forward, 8 years, knew I wanted to do something different. It was actually, my wife was like, well, why don't you go build again? I was like, well,
Yeah.
no, that ship sailed in no way. I had
Okay.
no desire to get back into building. Now, looking back to 16, man, that would have been an amazing time to get back into
Yeah.
builder, right? Like
Yeah.
the market the past 6-7 years has just been crazy.
Yeah.
But because I think of my experience in 06 to 08 and kind of how rough that was during that time
Yeah.
period, and not knowing really what the market was like at that time, I was like, yeah, no, that's not for me. And she was like, well, what about just real estate? Like, it's still housing related. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I could probably do that, right? And we actually owned some gyms at that time.
Oh, yeah. Ryan ran it.
So we owned 3 fitness centers at that time. And she was like, well, don't we have isn't one of our gym members in real estate? And I was like, oh, yeah, Dave, who's my now broker, Dave Nichols.
Okay.
And she's like, maybe you should call him up. So I looked up his number, called him, said, hey, can I come talk to you about real estate? That answer is, if you're in real estate and somebody says you want to talk real estate, that answer is always yes.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Yeah.
never a no. And so when met with him, he said, yeah, go get your real estate license and I'll hire you into the brokerage and you can see if this is a good fit for you. So I did that. The first year I was in, I was really just part-time because I was still a police officer for the first year. We had 3 gyms. I was doing real estate. So it was very part-time. Sold like 8 houses that year. Now, granted, the average in Kansas City is like 5. So I was still which is crazy to think the average
Yeah.
agent in Kansas City sells 5 houses a year. Which that's probably, I mean, you're probably looking at, with the average price point here in Kansas City, you're probably looking at $35,000 in commission. So not really anything you can comfortably live off of at that point, but a lot of people just do it part-time. So and then the second year I was no longer a police officer, but our gyms were really doing well. So most of my time was spent there. Again, sold another 8 houses that year. Third year, about 6 months in, I really hadn't done any business yet, and the gyms were not doing well. And my wife's like, "You got to shit or get off the pot. Like, what are you doing here?" Like, right? And I was like, "Man, okay." Like, I mean, I was out looking, applying at other places because, again, I wasn't a police officer. Gyms weren't doing well. I hadn't sold anything in real estate. We all got bills to pay, right? And so I was kind of looking around, putting some applications to other places. Thankfully, those didn't work out. And about that same time, I was like, man, how do I stand out? There's, at that time, probably $13,000 real estate agents in Kansas City. Now there's like 15,000. And I was like, how do I stand out? And I had some friends that were doing like crazy listing videos and just doing a lot of video and other things in other states.
Crazy listing videos, huh?
Yeah, crazy.
Does that sound familiar?
It sounds a little familiar.
Shot a few of those.
I'm a little outside the box when it comes to listing videos. And so I was like, man, I could do that stuff, right? And that's actually how we met.
Yep.
Was the first time I called one of my real estate friends who I actually went to high school with, and I'd seen some of her videos, a little more traditional real estate, like, hey, welcome to my new listing, let's go inside and take a look, and kind of point out the features and whatnot. But the quality was really good, and I was like, hey, who do you use? And she pointed me to you. And I still remember the first video you guys shot for me.
I remember it. Up north.
Yeah, it was up north. I'm trying to think I think it was for Noah, and my client Noah, and so I had no clue what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to do something different. And they're like, "So what are we doing today?" And I was like, "I don't know, something different." Like, we had no clue, right? And it was horrible. I mean, it was funny. It was just way different, right?
Yeah.
But then kind of leaning on some of my friends in other cities, other states, kind of getting ideas on what they were doing and tweaking stuff and really just letting that creativity flow. Really kind of jump-started, I think, in a way, my career, because no one was doing anything like that in Kansas City. And still no one is doing anything like that in Kansas City. 3 years later, there's one guy that was with Remax for a couple years. He left Remax and went somewhere else. I can't remember where he went. He was doing some fun video, but just not at the frequency because he was a newer agent. But really, other than that, nobody still 3 years later is doing anything like that. And, we're talking parodies, like song parodies, or just goofy skits, or matching on higher end homes, matching like the transitions to the beat of the music, and just nobody's doing anything like that still.
You can have fun and be professional, and fun is accessible for people that are watching the videos.
Professional depending on who you're talking to, right?
True.
So, I mean, some of my videos do get official complaints filed on them because they're borderline and they're edgy, but the client always knows what's going on. They write off on it.
Yeah. And that's almost your brand at this point,
and
right?
It's entertainment in a way, right? Like, I feel like as a realtor, like, we're marketing the property, right? Like, how are we going to get the most eyes on this property? Is it just pictures on the MLS, like most people do?
That's boring.
Or just like a simple walkthrough video? Like, again, I don't know. I don't enjoy watching those. Like, I don't know. I think people like to have fun and smile and laugh.
Yeah.
And so I try to bring that to them just in the form of real estate marketing.
Yeah.
So we started doing that. It kind of took off in 2019. I ended up doing 18 deals in 6 months, just the second 6 months of 2019. And then 2020 just exploded.
That's when the market was.
Did 50 deals that year.
Yeah.
Even with COVID, like I feel like a lot of people were kind of hesitant to go out. I was like, man, I got bills to pay.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
And then 2021 did 59 deals. This year, 2022 into 2022, it's actually a little less on the number of transactions, but my average price point doubled from last year. So it went from like 230,000 average last year to like $440,000 this year.
And does that kind of go with the flow of all real estate at this point, right? There's ebbs and flows
yeah,
in general.
a little
and you're
bit.
kind of
I
just
mean,
following
prices have gone up, so it makes sense that the average, your average still goes up. The average price point Kansas City right now is like 300 to 330,000.
Okay.
Depending on what city, what neighborhood you're in, like that. But I think a lot of it also, just the longer you do it, the more referrals you get. You start getting years, 5 through 7, you start getting repeat clients who are maybe selling that first house. Now they're buying a more expensive home.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to work with a few professional athletes. So that kind of gets you into a different category as well. They're actually spending more than the average person would probably spend. So I've had 3 Chiefs clients. One of their parents has bought a house here. So for there, I've helped a Royals player that was on a rental, but you never know, that might turn into something down the road.
Yeah.
So, I think it just kind of, the longer you're in it, the more opportunities that present themselves. And then it's easier to get your average price point up there a little bit.
And you are, as a family, you guys are in real estate, right? Your wife is a stager.
Yeah.
So was she a stager before you got in?
She was not before I got in. That's something that she had always wanted to do. She actually wanted to go to school for interior design college. She went to Warrensburg. It was Central CMSU at the time. Now it's
Central Missouri State. Now it's University of Central Missouri.
University
They do that. They did that
Missouri,
with SMS.
Yeah, so it was CMSU and now it's UCM. So whatever.
Yeah, we have fun with the colleges here.
Yeah, but that's what she wanted to go to college for. But then her mom kind of directed her towards something that she felt would maybe be a little more stable.
Okay.
But then it was probably 2019. I'd say 20. It might have been 2018. Definitely 2019. She started a design and staging company. She did that for a couple years. Then she partnered with another lady who'd been doing it since 1997.
Yeah.
And that lady recently retired, and she actually bought that lady's company. So now she has just a ton of clients, staging every week, multiple houses, build a huge warehouse for everything. But that's like half the business. Then they do blinds and wallpaper and carpet and custom furniture and all that stuff. So
I got you.
You can do anything from stage a house to sell it, or you move in a new house and you need stuff.
Yeah.
She handles that part too. So
did you ever, when you stopped building, there was a cavity, right, between when you were building and when you became an agent? Did you ever think of doing, because wasn't that like the flip time period where everybody was doing flips and it was all that remodeling stuff going on?
A lot of people got out of real estate from like 2010, I feel like, to like 2014-ish. A lot of people lost their ass.
Yeah.
In the housing,
the downturn,
bubble burst, market crash, whatever you want to call it, right? And that's one of the reasons why today, even 10 years later, we have less new construction. The lowest amount of new construction we've had since the 1940s, right? And part of that goes back to that 2008, 2010 time frame. When you look at the numbers, every decade from like 1940 to 2000, an average of 20 to 25 million new homes were built every decade, right? And then you look at 2000 to 2010, and that number dropped to 5 million. Like, so it went from 20 to 25 every decade for like 50 years to 5 million. And I mean, that's a lot less houses, right? So it takes a long time. Like, it's probably gonna be another decade before we're back up to that. And then you factor in like all the supply chain issues we've had the last couple of years. You factor in all the prices going up on all the raw materials, and like it just all that just kind of snowballs together.
Well, and there's a new generation that's okay with leasing for a long period of time, right?
You
Does
know,
that have a lot to do with it?
A little bit. I think that is kind of what was the common perception maybe like a couple of years ago, is like, hey, these millennials aren't going to want to go buy a home. Like they want to rent, they want to do this. And that's really not what we're seeing right now.
Okay.
We're seeing, hey, no, we don't want to live at home. We do want to get out on our own. We want to be smart with our money. And so you have this huge group that's now out looking to buy houses at the same time where everyone else is looking to buy.
Yeah.
At the same time, the number of houses being built every year is down, which means people can't sell their existing home and move in a new home.
Okay.
And it just all kind of just piles all together.
Yeah.
And it's kind of led to the craziness we've had the past couple years. Yeah, and I think it's more so an affordability point versus desire to buy. But honestly, with the way rental prices are skyrocketing, like a lot of times your house payment's lower than your rental rate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it just comes down to then, like, do you have the down payment? Do you have the credit score? What are interest rates? Like all of that stuff. And right now at the end of 2022, interest rates are the highest they've been in several years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
6.5 to low 7s.
And that's why you have a real estate agent, right? All those odds and ends that people don't think about.
There's a lot to look at. You know, your local lender has a big part or a big role to play in that. And we've done some other videos in recent weeks where we talked about different ways to get payments down, whether that's a buy down or an ARM or getting the seller to pay closing costs or all that stuff. So but
there are exhaustive ways
there's
you a house.
There's a lot of ins and outs. So, and you know, you can't say that on the buying side a real estate agent is free. Can't say that. If you have a buyer's agent that say they're free, they're not. The cost, the difference is you're not, for the most part, you're not directly compensating the buyer's agent, right?
Okay.
It's typically built into the price of the home.
Yeah.
And the seller then pays the buyer's agent. Now there might be some small administrative type charges, you know, a few $100s or something like that, depending on your agent's brokerage that the broker may charge. But we're talking, you know, $400, $500, $600 versus $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 and up on a commission side of things. So
what's more fun, buyer's agent or seller's agent?
You know, they're both fun. I think that on a lot has to do with the individual client, right?
Yeah,
you know what
true,
I mean?
true.
I love all of my clients.
Objectively,
I'm just putting it out there. I love all of my clients. But you know, I think the listening side is more fun as far as like you get more creativity.
You get
like
to make kooky videos.
You get to make crazy videos. Stir the pot. Not that I'd ever stir the pot, but you got to stir the pot a little bit.
Yeah.
There's more costs associated to the agent on the listing side because you got to pay for the pictures, you got to pay for the video, you got to pay for all the marketing, you got to do all that stuff.
True.
And then you have to, if right now when houses aren't going under contract quite as fast, you have to deal with those expectations from the seller. Hey, why isn't my house under contract yet? Like it's been a week, it's been 2 weeks, it's been 4 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the past couple of years, it's like, hey, why isn't my house under contract? We're on day 2, right?
It's probably more important that you're locked in too on the seller side, right? So you can expect that you're probably going to sell that house. If you're a buyer's agent, do you see people kind of get cold feet?
You know,
a lot.
I'd say probably the last couple of years, I was only doing like 6-month contracts on the listing side.
Yeah.
Whereas now I've bumped up to a year just because you don't know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
A lot of it again comes down to the marketing and your original price point. Did you price it correctly? But there's a lot of other factors too, right? and then you charge a cancellation fee? Do you not charge a cancellation fee if they cancel? I do on the listing side just because I have out-of-pocket expenses.
Yeah.
And you have to treat it as a business, right? Not just, I'm just not here selling houses. Like, I'm running a business, and the business is selling that, but you can't take losses every time a client changes their mind either, right? So I at least make sure I recoup my expenses. So I might not make anything. I might break even, but I'm not losing $1,000 either, right?
Yeah.
Buyers are fun too, though. You get to go out and meet them and figure out what they're looking for, and then find them houses and go show them all these cool properties and get to point out different things that you see wrong with the house.
I was going to say, built into that buyer side is probably the expectation that you should be able to point things out, huh? Like
I think so, but I've also been in situations where another agent was showing the house and they're just looking at the cosmetic stuff, and I'll point out a structural thing, and I see the agent looking at me like, "Oh dang, I didn't notice that." Like I wouldn't even know to look at that, right?
Yeah.
And I always tell my buyers the first time we go out, I'm like, "Hey, I'm not an inspector, but I'm going to point out everything I can find wrong with this house. And it's not to scare you away from buying the house, but inspections can be $300, $400, $500, $600, right?
Yeah.
And if I point out something that I notice that the inspector definitely would have seen, if I see it, they're definitely going to find it. And that's a deal breaker. But it was a deal breaker before you had to pay for inspections.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I like my $500, right? So if I can save you $500, then that's
certainly.
We'll just go on to the next property, right? Like, I'm looking for wood rot and, peeling paint. And, the breaker box, is it a 100 amp or 200 amp? If it's a 100 amp, I mean, that's fine. That's what older houses were, but you can't run as much stuff. Like, we couldn't run any of this stuff that we're running right now. We'd be flipping breakers left and right.
Yeah.
And to upgrade to a 200 amp box, and this is if it's like not knob, like old knob and tube, right?
Yeah.
If it's at least updated electrical by 100 amp, you're still looking at $3,000, $3,500 to update to a newer 200 amp box.
Yeah.
That's a lot of
money.
money.
As long as you're disclosing that, it might not even deter the buyer, but your fiduciary responsibility is disclosure.
I'm going to point it out, right?
Okay.
It's on the seller's disclosure, but you'd be surprised how many times everything just says unknown on those.
I could see that because I've sold recently, and you just have a tough time with some of the disclosure like language is tough. And then you have to refer to like blueprints or like the previous listing if you can't. Yeah.
How old's the
and that can be tough.
Furnace and the air conditioner and the water heater and all that stuff. So, but no, buyer's fun, and it's fun to get to see them get the house that they want. Yeah. Right. Like, that's rewarding as well. So, both rewarding. You're helping the person on the selling side sell their property so they can move on and do whatever that their next goal is. And on the buy side, you get to see that buyer move into their dream home or their first home or whatever it might be. So they're both fun, just different challenges depending on different situations and the individual client as well.
That's it.
Because I never have any difficult clients.
No, I can't imagine.
That would never happen.
We're going to have story time for those, I'm sure, because that'll be an interesting
one. No names.
No, we don't have to use names, but I want to hear those stories. So then, I guess, why Kansas City? Like, why did you move to Kansas City?
And back in '89, I mean, I was 9 years old.
Oh, you were forced to.
I didn't really have a choice. Now,
why stay in Kansas City?
Right. Well, actually, when I was going through college, I did it wasn't an internship because we didn't have internships at my college back in the late '90s, early 2000s. But I did a mentorship.
Okay.
Not an internship, but a mentorship with an FBI agent here in Kansas City. And I'm 20. I'm 21. We're going shooting like MP4s at the range. Like, I'm like, this is freaking awesome, right? He's like, yeah, if you want to be in the FBI, just go join the police department for a few years and then apply, and pretty much a shoe in from Kansas City anyway. Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, this is what I'm going to do. So I went and applied for the police department, got hired, and I met my wife like the like 10-day period from between I graduated and when the police academy started. Like I met her in that week and a half time period, right? And she was an only child from Raytown, lived in Kansas City area her whole life.
Raytown, that's where a lot of people are from.
Yeah.
Not a ton of people live there anymore,
right?
but that's where they're all from.
Maybe not as much now, but back then, right? Not saying anything bad about Raytown. It's just it's a little different than it used to be. And so she was the FBI. You don't really get a say in where you work at or how often you move. And that wasn't really something that was going to go over well, as we developed a more serious relationship.
Yeah.
So that kind of went off, and then I just kind of got stuck in the law enforcement. I say stuck, but just because the only reason I did it was to go to the FBI, and then I didn't do that, so I just kind of got stuck in that lane for a decade and a half. So,
well, it worked out.
In the end, worked out okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What would you tell somebody's thinking about moving to Kansas City? How do you sell them on it? What do you like about Kansas City?
I think that it's even though costs have gone up everywhere, though, right? Like, so you can't really say, oh, it's costs have gone up. You should probably say, but costs have gone up all over the nation. Like I have real estate friends in every single state, and some of the prices are just insane, right? And if you're local here and you don't know any different, then you're probably thinking, oh yeah, prices are really high here. Everywhere's up, and really our rate of increases seem to be quite a bit lower than a lot of other major cities. So I think affordability is still a good reason to move here. A lot of times we get clients from out of state, and they'll sell out of state for super high, and they just come here and pay cash because the houses are so much less expensive than where they sold from, right? So affordability, accessibility, it's super easy to get around the city.
Yeah.
But it's still like everyone's still friendly here. You know what I mean? Like you just don't I don't know if that makes sense.
What about suburb? Somebody's looking to move to a suburb of Kansas City. What do you recommend?
Man, I think a lot of it just depends on school district has some say in that, right?
Yeah, true.
Do you have kids that are to school age, or do you not? And even if you don't, should we still look at school district for resale purposes in the future? Or if you're going to be in the house forever, then it doesn't really matter at that rate, right?
Yeah.
But I think schools play a big factor. Maybe a distance to where you're working, right? Like if you're working in Liberty, which is a suburb up on the north side of Kansas City, do you want to live in Lenexa on the Kansas side? That's a pretty good drive. Like what you're looking at, probably 50 minutes to an hour each way.
And I would say it depends on when you work, because if you're going rush hour traffic through downtown in the morning and you're coming back in the evening, you're going to have a tough time.
But that's still something to look at too, right? So I think schools, schools, and then distance to work or distance to family, even if you have family that lives in the area. And then it's just value at that point, right? Like where can you find the house that best fits what you're looking for? Generally speaking, I know you might not like this because you live on the Kansas side. Generally speaking, the Kansas side is a little more expensive than the Missouri side.
Well, I was going to say, in some sense, the state should matter, huh? Because for those that don't know, we have Missouri in Kansas City and we have Kansas in Kansas City.
Yeah. So Kansas City split right down the middle. Nothing really happens in Kansas City proper.
Yeah.
Kansas. Kansas City, Missouri proper, that's where, there's a lot more on that side. But, you get down to Wyandotte County and you get the Legends. Yeah. You get Sporting KC Stadium. You get the NASCAR racetrack. Like, all of that has been developed over the past, several years in Wyandotte County. But just generally the real estate, if you take the same house on the Kansas side and the same house on the Missouri side, you're typically paying an extra $20,000 on the Kansas side for the exact same thing on the Missouri side.
We're coming at you from Lenexa.
Yeah. So I think, not that that's the end all be all, but I think that might play a little factor in it also. And some people just like saying they're from Johnson County.
Yeah.
Right. So.
And I would say, which I don't even know if this is true. Would you say that Johnson County, maybe specifically like Overland Park, this area is maybe a little bit newer, a little bit more posh? Because you go to Town Center, you go to South Overland Park.
Yeah.
I think 20 years ago, there was
Nothing
but the Sprint Center or Sprint campus.
Yeah.
And now they've built around that. It seems to be, I don't know, like that in my head. It's like that's a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing
posh.
quite a bit like commercial development on the Missouri side in some of the suburbs, like as far as restaurants and things like that.
Well, and you're from Lee Summit, right?
Lee Summit's
big.
We got a ton of new restaurants coming in, new shopping centers that have been built over the past, 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah. In the past year, you've had what? Shake Shack, Red Door. There's
Cooper's Hawk,
Whataburger. It's insane.
Whataburger. I'm trying. There's other ones too.
Because I'm from Lee Summit.
Yeah,
and it's night and day compared to when I was a kid. When you go back there,
there's Gus's Fried Chicken is getting ready to open up out there. So yeah, there's been a ton of restaurants just opened in the past 12 months out there. So yeah. So, but yeah, just kind of wrapping this up a little bit as far as like just the intro thing. That's kind of my experience in real estate. I help whoever I can. I don't really have a set price point. Like if somebody's, I had a previous client that needed help selling a $140,000 home earlier this year in Kansas City, off of Blue Ridge, like 99th and Blue Ridge.
Yep.
It's an interesting part of town.
Not as posh.
Not as posh by any means. I think that one was at 140. Townhouses. I've sold land before, 120 acres. Getting ready to sell another 115 acres on the Kansas side. Industrial. I had a client this morning send me a $775,000 house they want to go look at. So really it's wherever I can help people. Like I think that's kind of the thing from the law enforcement side too, is while I don't miss it, I helped a lot of people there, right? Yeah. And I'm still able to help a lot of people. So I just have the same, way different industry, obviously, but the same mindset of, hey, if I can do something to help, like I want to help whatever I can do to help. Right?
Is that what motivates
how
you?
Can I help you?
Just in general,
yeah. So, but yeah, so hopefully everybody enjoyed the first podcast, if you will, a little different setup here, and obviously if you're listening and watching this, because we're doing both here, just released on different days. All my contact information is on the video portion of this. I'm sure we'll have it uploaded on the podcast.
Yeah, we can put it in the description.
Yeah. We'll throw my contact information in the description of the podcast. If you have any questions or looking to do anything real estate related here in the greater Kansas City area, I am licensed in Missouri and in Kansas, so either or. The 775 house was actually on the Kansas side, so
okay.
But I've done $1 million properties on the Missouri side too.
Yeah.
So whatever I can do to help, just reach out and let me know what I can do. That's it. So
ask some questions.
Yeah.
Any questions? Because we'll do this. This will serve for people looking to buy and sell. This might even serve for real estate agents. Just listen, ask. We'll do mailbags.
I like it. All right, guys. Until next time. See you later.
The Rains Report is brought to you weekly by Juke Media. Look for episodes every Friday wherever you download podcasts. And remember to rate and subscribe for more content.